Welcome to the West Ham Voice. Tim Steidten, he has finally been announced as technical director at West Ham United. We've been hearing about this story for quite some time, and people were beginning to ask, when is this signing going to happen? And it's been revealed. After 3 months of leaving Bayer Leverkusen, he's taken up his new role at West Ham. Look, this is a major shift in how we'll be managing the footballing side of our business from now on, or at least I hope so. You see, for many years, whether we like it or not, we've not been able to fault too much the business side of West Ham. I know almost every West Ham fan found the move from the Bow Lane to be unpalatable, especially with the promises attached to what that move was going to bring, such as Champions League football, world-class football stadium, world-class team, and all that sort of stuff. But one of the main reasons why we have not really seen so much success on the pitch has been because of the footballing side of how this football club has been run, which has been poor, to say the least. Now, it's a bit ironic, isn't it, really, that, when you own a football team, you'd imagine one of the things you're going to do well is to run the footballing side of it. But, unfortunately, that's not been the case. Our current and our previous owners, such as the Icelandics, had no football strategy in place at all. There was no plan for continuity or structure in place to ensure that we had a proper identity in the way that we managed our players, we managed our football, we managed our style of football, players coming in, players leaving the club, etc. Everything has been a bit of a mishmash. Everything was seemed to have been done on a whim. Now, of course, the Icelandic age, we spent big on all the wrong players. The Icelandic spent money. Most of players that they brought in, most of them were past their best, rather than buying players where we could build a solid foundation from and a solid, successful team on. Enter David Sullivan and the late David Gold, and they seem to be much more focused about moving us into the London Stadium and not paying the same amount of attention to the running of a successful team on the pitch. Add to that the disaster that is David Sullivan in the transfer market, the man who thought he had an eye for talent, only to find that his talent spotting left an awful lot to be desired. And what were we left with? Well, like I said, a mishmash of footballers who have come to the club, left the club at equal speed. The amount of money that we've wasted on our transfers over the past dozen years or so under the current ownership just doesn't bear thinking about. The problem is that there's a big myth with West Ham fans that the current owners don't spend money in the transfer market. The problem is they do. They just don't spend money wisely or don't spend money well. A vast amount of it has been sort of wasted in the transfer market. It may or it may not surprise many of you to see that since 2010, 2011, up to the present day, West Ham United have spent approximately £730 million in the transfer market, and we've sold just only £256 million worth of players in that same period of time. There's only really one season where we've actually bought in more money than we spent. And that was in the 2017-2018 season, where we invested £50 million in the transfer market, but actually sold £59 million worth of players the other way. And 20 million of that was the sale of Andrew Ayew back to Swansea City. Now, let me give you a list of some of the players that we've invested in, which just haven't worked out for West Ham United for one reason or another. I'm sure you've got your own list in your heads. Let's start off with, for example, Andy Carroll. A great player in his day, but perpetually injured. I'd include Ayew in the list, but as I said, because we almost got all our money back, you can't really, it wasn't great, but we got our money back. There are other players, Chicharito, 15, 16 million pounds that we bought him for. Felipe Anderson, 35 million pounds. Isa Diop, which was a 23 million pound signing. Sebastian Haller, 45 million. Nikola Vlasic, 30 million. And of course, more recently, Gianluca Scamacca and Maxwell Cornet that we got for 35 million and 18 million respectively. Look, some of these players have gone on to actually do really well and prove that and demonstrate just how good footballers they really are. Haller, for example, everyone much maligned at West Ham, but he's gone on and proved what a decent striker he is. So others that we should have bought in, others we should have never bought. They were either injury prone or just past their best. Yet we have had some success stories, haven't we? You know, there's been Dimitri Payet, for example, Marko Arnautovic, Adrian, Angelo Ogbonna, Lanzini, Fabianski, Fornals, Benrahma, Bowen, etc. We've had some success stories, so it's not been all doom and gloom. But as you can see, it's been a bit of a mixed bag. And we still find ourselves going into another season with one of the oldest squads in the Premier League, where sooner or later, players aging is just going to catch up with us. And thankfully, the change, unless something changes, these older players, as much as we love them, could make it difficult for West Ham to stay in the Premier League. But thankfully, the change seems to now be here with the arrival of technical director Tim Steidten. Let's not underestimate the job that Steidten has got on his hands. It's a mammoth task because not only does he have to find a replacement for Declan Rice, who's, well, just about gone, and any other player who might leave in this transfer window, he also has to change the whole ethos of our transfer, of our transfers overall, the way we think in the transfer market. He has to help to bring in a completely different style of footballer. He needs to bring in a different ethos to the way we play, and so on. And he needs to do the obvious, bring players into roles that suit the roles that we need, rather than trying to fit square pegs into round holes that we seem to be perpetually doing. He is also has to dramatically bring down the average age of the squad, whilst ensuring that the players who do come to the club are more than capable of being able to handle the demands of not only Premier League football, which is alien to Steidten, having never worked in this league before, but also players who are going to be capable of withstanding the demands of European football as well. And look, it's quite likely that Steidten will succeed in getting the right players to deliver a great European campaign, but maybe won't do as well in the first season in the Premier League. Sound familiar? Yeah, it could be that next season just might be a little bit more of the same as last season. But having said that, fear not, because I really do not foresee as bad a season in the Premier League as the one we've just had. And why am I so confident? Well, because if they all stay, Naif Gerd, Flynn Downs, Thilo Kehrer, Gianluca Scamacca, and of course Lucas Paqueta will have all had one Premier League season under their belts and will all be better prepared for the season ahead. I'd include Areola, Cornet and Emerson in that list as well, but they've already had experience of the Premier League anyway. So with this nucleus of players, it gives Steidten the opportunity to bring players in who are going to complement rather than disrupt the squad for next season. But Steidten's role won't just be to recruit the right players with his heavily led data analytical approach. He has clearly been sold a vision to West Ham about West Ham that his remit will go beyond just player recruitment. Steidten left Bayer Leverkusen in March of this year when it was rumoured that he had fallen out with Bayer Leverkusen's Simon Rolfs after his relationship with his counterpart deteriorated after Rudi Völler left, which was Leverkusen's sporting director, stepped down in the summer of 2022. Steidten is quoted at the time as saying he wanted a new project where he had more say over decisions. And one of those big decisions is inevitably going to find the replacement for a number of coaching roles at West Ham United. For example, we have yet to replace Paul Konchesky, who left the team by mutual consent in managing the women's team. We've also got to find a number two for David Moyes after Mark Warburton left that role recently. And of course, there's the opportunity to look for a replacement for David Moyes. Look, whatever happens this season, it's evident that David Moyes' contract is not likely to be extended beyond this season. So Steidten will be asked, I'm pretty sure, to look for a replacement for Moyes. Of course, should the season start badly, then Steidten might be tasked to finding a new coach sooner rather than later in the season. So he's got a project that he wants, and hopefully with more autonomy over decision making. And that's one of the biggest things. Now, I alluded to this in the video I did on Warburton and Steidten last weekend. And the one question that I just don't seem to have an answer for right now is just how Steidten is going to be given that autonomy, not only with Moyes at the club, but with David Sullivan as well. You see, Moyes and Sullivan are like two peas in a pod. They both like to be in ultimate control of everything. In fact, it has taken a lot of effort for Sullivan not to get involved in transfers over the last couple of seasons, and he seems to have been reluctantly given David Moyes and Rob Newman the freedom to do their transfer business without him being involved. Well, that was until things got desperately bad in the league last season, only for Sullivan to do a special and bring a player in that Moyes knew nothing about. And that, of course, was the purchase of Danny Ings, if the stories knocking about were to be believed. But if Steidten is going to be given the role and the autonomy he wants, with a decision-making that befits a technical director of his stature, then neither Moyes nor Sullivan must either interfere or block the plans that Steidten has for West Ham United. In the video I did last weekend, I asked what type of technical director would be like at West Ham. What responsibilities would that role have? And I mentioned it would have to include responsibility for and the overseeing of the club's playing philosophy, the academy, the training ground, player contracts, recruitment of both players and coaching staff. So for Steidten to truly succeed, he would need to have this freedom. Because it is absolutely to be brought into the modern age of how to run the footballing side of a football club. I also mentioned in last week's video that the principle for a technical director is to look at the short and is to look at the medium and long-term plans for the club. He shouldn't be looking at the short-term, get a result tomorrow type approach. He's got to try and make sure that a club is set up in a way that is going to survive whatever coach, whatever manager is in charge of the first team for the midterm and the long term. So if we are to progress, then it's quite vital. I questioned why Steidten would want to come to West Ham United, especially after being courted by the likes of Chelsea and Liverpool. Steidten is likely to relish the challenge that West Ham United will bring to him. This could be a 3 to 5 year project for him, where if it works, the sky's the limit as to where he goes after West Ham. But he has to be given the time and the space to succeed. And for me, these are the two factors that will make or break this technical director signing. If Moyes blocks and if Sullivan interferes, then unfortunately, there's not much chance of Steidten succeeding. If Moyes understands and works alongside Steidten, and if Sullivan holds his nerve and gives him the time to do what needs to be done to reshape the way this club operates, then I think this will be the best signing we have had this summer. For more details of Steidten, his background, etc., do go to my back catalogue of videos. The video I did last weekend, it talks about Steidten in a bit more detail, his background, when he worked at Werder Bremen and Bayer Leverkusen, and also gives you details of the best 11 signings that Steidten has made in his time at those two clubs. Thank you all for watching, and much appreciated as usual. If you're new to the channel, do hit the subscribe, like, and bell notification to let you know when I'm next on, and I will see you all very soon.